Welcome to Becoming a Vector Business. This web event is all about the 5 keys to an awesome business and an awesome life. And what we're trying to actually achieve here is we're actually trying to achieve an element of structure in and around your business. And it's very hard to achieve anything in small business unless you've got structure there to surround you. So hopefully today's session is going to take you through that structure as we see it, and the areas that you need to focus on, as well as giving you some good content along the way to implement straight away in your business. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is what's the issue that we're seeing in most small businesses. Now, what we're seeing at the moment, obviously, is we've got this overlay of COVID over the whole thing. COVID has affected businesses in all manner of ways. Some are doing really well, such as building construction industry. Makes you wonder why people are protesting when everybody else in business has been locked down, and all of a sudden building and construction start getting irate at being locked down. But COVID's brought out some strange habits in individuals, and I think the stresses have got a lot to do with that. But if we look underneath what COVID's brought to the party, there are 3 issues in small business that have always been there. And I've seen these issues over the last 25 years that I've been working as an accountant, and they were probably in existence before that. So the first of those is the finances, and really having a good grasp and understanding of the finances of your business. It doesn't mean that you need to be an accountant, but what it does mean is that you need to really have a good grasp of what those numbers mean, know how those numbers can help you make the correct decisions, and then also be able to ask the right questions of your professionals. So rather than having a conversation with your accountant that's just all based around a tax refund, maybe having those conversations around more complex issues as to how to help increase the profits of your business, for instance, or how you can be managing your team better. There's a whole raft of things that your accountant can help you with, but you're not getting to that because you're just focused on the bare minimum, the stuff that you typically understand. Now, as we move past understanding the finances in your business, the thing that we need to move towards is we need to move towards getting around this overwhelm issue. Now, overwhelm's a big thing, not only now, but without COVID, because a lot of people have trouble saying no in small business, and that gets you into trouble. Now, what I mean by that is that you could have a whole heap of leads or a whole heap of inquiries coming into your business, and you're trying to please everyone. You're trying to please every single customer, no matter whether they're a profitable customer or an unprofitable customer. You're trying to bend over backwards because you were sold this myth that the customer always comes first. The fact is it's the right customer always comes first, and a lot of us are dealing with the wrong customers or clients. So that's one factor of overwhelm, is the over-pleaser. And if you're an over-pleaser, then this is impacting you, and you're probably feeling that weight on your shoulders all the time that you're just too busy. Now, I don't know about you, but I've only got 24 hours in my day. We've got an ebook of how you can clone yourself and effectively get 48 hours in your day, but that's all just about time management. So managing yourself when you're in overwhelm is very hard, because you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. So overwhelm's a really big impact on small business owners. Now, the third of these, which kind of ties into overwhelm, is the fact that most small businesses don't have a clear plan and they lack real focus. Now, if you don't have a clear plan and focus, then you're going to wander around and you're going to get distracted, and you're going to spend a whole heap of time doing the things that you shouldn't be doing. Problem with that is that then builds more overwhelm into the equation. So you see how all of these are tied together. The overwhelm can come from not understanding the finances correctly. So you're over here in the fetal position as a business owner going, oh, what am I going to do? I'm overwhelmed, I'm too busy, I'm just going to have to keep running as fast as I can. And you end up doing this hamster wheel thing in business, which I think we can all relate to. We've all done it. It's nothing new, but it's something that we really need to work towards, countering that with some really good structure and a really good way to actually run your business. So moving beyond the issues in your business, you've got this concept of your life and your business life. And this is what I like to think of as the yin and the yang. Okay? Now, those of you who are familiar with yin and yang, you've got a light and you've got a dark. Now, your life is typically seen as the light. It's the thing that you aspire to. You want to get more life. A lot of people seek this freedom, and a lot of people went into small business to get freedom. It's quite funny because most of us who go into business to get freedom get the absolute opposite, because we don't have any structure or any plan or focus in terms of how we're running things. Converse to that, you've got the dark, you've got your business. And your business sits over here and is seen as the dark. Don't spend so much time on your business. You're always on business. Okay? Oh, I wish I could have more time off. So it's seen as the dark. But it doesn't need to be that way. You see, I believe that there's no such thing as work-life balance. You're never going to get a balance between your life and your business life. What you are going to get is you're going to get this integration between the two. Now, the integration is really important because as you go through this, you need to get what we call the mix right. Now, for those of you who are familiar with the music industry in any way, shape or form, you'll understand that, you go see a concert, you see the guy there with all the dials and all the faders, mixing desk, whole heap of equalizers, whole heap of effects. All of those are adjusted depending on the circumstances, the venue that they're playing in. Now, sure, there's commonalities that can be set and forget, but the fact is that there's still a lot of adjustment, there's a lot of tuning to be done. And your business life and your life are no different. There's always got to be this tuning of what's going on depending on the circumstances. Now, if you don't tune it right, what happens is everything just comes out all pear-shaped. It's the same with music. If the person who's at the mixing desk doesn't know what they're doing, then the sound is going to be atrocious. Much like your business is going to be atrocious if you get your mix wrong. So there's no such thing as a balance. You're never going to just be 50-50 or be the same. Oh, I've got balance now. The fact is you've got to integrate it. There'll be times when you can get time away from the business if you set it up right. There will also be time when you've just got to work really hard within the business and put the hours in. There is no easy way in business. But what everybody's trying to do is they've all read the 4-hour work week, they've all read the E-Myth, and they're all trying to basically work on the business rather than in the business. They're all trying to get the deck chair on the beach to work 4 hours and forget about the business before it's cooked, before it's designed to actually step away from. So it's critical that you think of this integration rather than a work-life balance, and understand that, to have the freedom and the slave just automatically aligned isn't going to happen. There are times when your business is going to demand you. So you've also got to understand how you're doing things and understand why you're doing things. Not the cliched Simon Sinek why, but really get that driving passion within you, so as you understand the purpose of why you're in business and what it's all about and where you're heading with this thing. So those factors are really important when you're at the start and really trying to design what's going on. So I talked about structure and how we're going to build structure within this to help you, achieve the things that you want to achieve. When you went into business, there were certain things that you wanted to do and get done and have happen. And that's what this is all about. That's what being a vector business is all about. And this is the first part of the vector platform, and this is the overall picture. Now, you'll see at the middle there, we've got your life and your business life in the center here. That's the integration. That's what it's all about, is your life and your business life. There is no other thing in small business as far as I'm concerned. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to give your business more direction at greater speed and with greater impact, because we all want to make an impact with what we do in our business, whether it be an impact to our customers, an impact in our personal life, or an impact on the clients that we serve or the community. We all want our golden goose, our business, to have an impact ultimately, whether that be now or whether that be in the future. That's what we should be about. So how do we do that? We help you create, implement and achieve the things that you need to do. That's this circle around here. Create, implement and achieve. And we do that by what we call the Vector Business Platform. And that's working around here from awareness through numbers, planning, improvement and accountability. And this is the structure that allows you to do everything on these inner circles. It's really important that you work through these. Now, you might be thinking, where the hell does this vector come from? What does vector mean? Now, vector is a scientific term for a measurement that has both a direction and also a magnitude. And that's what we're all about. We're trying to get you more direction at a greater speed with a greater impact. So vector is really, really important in that concept of that inner circle. This gives you the structure, and what you do when you get to the Vector platform, and I'll show you that in a moment, is you work through annual cycles, because building your business doesn't just happen in a quick course that you do over a 3-month period. It takes time, and you really need to have that structured approach and do it on an annual basis so as you're actually getting somewhere. Now, I see a lot of clients, they'll engage an accountant to deal with things on an annual cycle, but typically all the accountant's really doing is processing a whole heap of figures for the tax man, giving you the result, giving you your tax refund hopefully, and then moving you on into the next year. There's not a lot happening beyond what we call compliance. And that's a real shame, because what you as the business owner need is you need everything else within the structure. From they're dealing with just this numbers part. You need the planning, the improvement, the accountability, the awareness of what's going on, not just this little subsection of the numbers. So as we go through, I'll show you some insights as to why you need these other things. So this is the Vector Business Platform. Now, as I just showed you, there are the 5 pillars as we go through the 12 months. It's going to take you from where you are now in terms of those 3 issues. So you haven't got a great deal of financial control. You might be a successful business, but you still don't have really good control over the numbers. Disorganised and overwhelmed, and you've got no clear plan. And where we want to take you is a position where you feel financially secure, you're confidently in control of your business, and you're actually taking those actions. You're getting things done. And all of those ideas that you've got for your business are actually being implemented. So at the moment, you're probably feeling like your business and your life just aren't where they should be. And we want to move the dial so as we can eventually get you to feel that you've accomplished what you originally set out to do when you went into business. Now that sounds really, really simple to do that, but it's not. You need to apply these 5 pillars or disciplines on an annual basis as you work through. Now, how does this work? We work through each of these awareness, numbers and planning in the first 3 months. When we work with a client, we get all of these things in place, and then we cycle through improvement and accountability on an ongoing basis. It doesn't mean we don't revisit some of these other earlier modules, but this is how we work with an accounting and coaching client. If you just want accounting, the numbers is your thing, and we'll take the little subsection out of that, tax and financials, and we'll just deal with compliance. There are businesses who just want the compliance. But the businesses that really get value from working with us are the businesses that work on all of these other factors, because if you aren't profitable, you don't have a tax problem. And our specialty is working with business owners who want to be profitable and turning them into a profitable concern. And then we can do some really interesting things when it comes to tax planning. So that's the broad model. So what I thought I'd do is, over the rest of this session, is take you through how each of those pillars works and give you some insights and some gold to take away today to work on. Now the first of these is before we get started on the 5 pillars, is understanding your business type, because this is going to be critical as to the type of ideas that you take from each pillar and the extent that you work with these things. So we talk about 3 different business types. We talk about a go-getter. So a go-getter is typically a business that has either just started, so they're a startup, or they might have purchased a business. So they're new to that particular business, but they're wanting to go places. They're not just going to want to have this tiny little job, if you like, and there's a lot of that now in the gig economy, just a job, but they want to go places in the business. So that's the first type of client that I see. The second type is a grow-getter. Now a grow-getter might be that go-getter that's gone to the next stage. So they've built the business up now, so they're actually going places. Or a grow-getter could be somebody who has been in business a while and maybe they've hit a brick wall. They've hit this S-curve that we talk about. And they now need to jump off and go to the next level. So a grow-getter can be quite a successful business, but they're a little bit stuck, they've maybe lost their way a little bit, or they're just wanting that extra oomph to get them to that next stage. The last stage that we've got is the time to go-getter. So this business type is the business owner who's maybe planning for the next step. And that next step's not just retirement, it could be moving on to another business, or they are ready now. And they haven't put the effort in over the last 4 or 5 years, they're just ready now, either through illness, tragedy, or something else that has happened that's blown their business apart. So there are 3 main business types. So which one do you fit into as you go through those 3 business types? I mentioned a second ago the S-curve. So this is the business, what we call the business S-curve. Now the business S-curve is all about moving through the different business types that I just showed you. So go-getters, grow-getters, and time to go-getters. But we also have this concept over and above that, and this is what links into our business scorecard. And our business scorecard, which I'll mention later, is a neat little quiz that you can take to find out which of these levels you're at. And it ties it all back to the concept of flying. So you're either stalled, in motion, in flight, or at altitude. And each one of those stages is important because you need to move and do certain things to get to the next level. Now what the S-curve says is the S-curve says, well, if you're down here at go-getter and you're a bit stalled or you're moving up, you're getting in motion, you get to this, and it's a bit like a trapeze artist. When you get to the top of your S-curve, you need to jump off and go to the next level and then ride the wave back up your S-curve again. Same as if you're in motion, to get to in flight, and as you grow, you want to jump off this and go to the time to go-getters. And this is typically where we work with these grow-getters, is that they've jumped out of the go-getter mode and now they're finding it's a new world to get to the top of this curve. They might have gone really, really well to start with and then they've plateaued, or they might have got to here but they need a bit of advice as to how to get into the time to go-getters and start working on that early. So these concepts talk about jumping off at different levels. So again, where's your business at on that S-curve? Are you down here where you're stalled, or are you up here and you're at altitude and there's really not a lot that you need to do now other than get out or keep it going until such time? And problem with that altitude, if you're not on the way out and planning for your exit, then it's a bit like snakes and ladders. You might actually go back down if you don't keep working at the business. So we work with a lot of businesses that are at altitude as well, keeping them moving until they're at that time to go stage. So it's really important as you move through to get all of those things happening. So the first of the 5 disciplines is awareness. So as we move through these things, we need to look at awareness and say, hey, let's understand your needs, because without understanding your needs, it's really hard to do anything, both from an advice perspective or if you're doing this yourself. Now, understanding your needs is really hard when you're the person with the needs, because quite often you don't know what you don't know, and you don't admit to a lot of things yourself. You let yourself off the hook. So the first thing that we do when we work with a business is we understand your needs. And that's simply done via both our scorecard initially, and then we have a more in-depth study of your needs, if you like, which is called Prioritise, and we move into that once we actually are working with you and we're actually in this awareness stage. The Prioritise is part of a paid service. Scorecard is free for you to do, and I'll show you the scorecard a little bit later on. It'd be a really good thing for you to do after this webinar. We also do a business valuation discovery. Now, business valuation is critical because if you don't know what your business is worth, then you're denying yourself of understanding what your true wealth is. Because your business is typically your second most valuable asset that you have other than your house. Unless you've got a property portfolio or a big investment portfolio. Now, your business is just part of that investment portfolio as far as I'm concerned. Because if you own a share in a company, then you own just that small ownership portion, a very small portion if it's a publicly listed share. With your business, you typically own 100% of it, or you own a share of it with others, whether it be your spouse or a third party. Now, business valuation discovery allows you to know what your business is worth now, because the aim of the game in business is to get to that time to go section with your business at its maximum value. Then you can cash in your chips and go to your next step, whether that be retirement or whether it be to move on to another business. But there's no point moving on to that next step when your business either isn't cooked or you haven't put in the effort to maximise its value. You're giving away money. So doesn't it make sense to know what your business is worth now so as you can then improve it for then? Most people don't start this exercise until it's way too late. They don't actually work on any of this stuff until they've decided to already leave the business. I used to do business sales and business broking, and it was really, really sad to see when somebody came in and they were so desperate to sell the business because they had to pay debts, or they had, one of them was ill and they just had to move on. So no thought had been given to growing the value of the business. Really sad, but easily dealt with. Now, the business valuation isn't a formal valuation that you would see in a court of law. It's not a forensic valuation. The business valuation that we do is what I like to call the back of a beer coaster valuation. You're looking at two things. You're looking at profitability and you're looking at risk. Now, we could talk for a whole session about how a business is valued, but essentially it's those two factors. The higher the profits, the more the business is worth. The lower the risk of the business, the more the business is worth. So the risk is how you get the multiple. You might have heard people say, oh yeah, it's a multiple of profit. Now, yes, you can value a business on a multiple of profit. There's rules of thumb that say, okay, so much of the income plus plant and equipment, etc., etc. But at the end of the day, you're going to take these figures to, or the future buyer is going to take these figures to an accountant. They're going to apply a multiple approach. Multiple comes from risk. Now, I'll explain that in numbers really simply. Let's say you have a multiple of 1. That's 1 year's worth of profit. Or 1 times annual profit. If you have a multiple of 5, that's 5 times annual profits. So obviously a multiple of 5 is a better thing because it values the business at a higher value. Now, how do you get from 1 to 5? 1 is a risky business. 5 is a low risk business. So the less risky you can make your business, the higher the multiple, the more it's worth. How do you make your business less risky? Things like systems and procedures, making the business actually be attractive to a future owner, not a scary beast that they just can't see themselves running. Making sure that you're in an industry that isn't going down as opposed to on an uphill ride. If it is going down, then what are the mitigating factors that make your business worth buying as opposed to the one next to you? So think hospitality at the moment during COVID. Okay? Who would want to buy or pay a premium for a cafe that is possibly, subject to future stay-at-home orders? Now, you might have a cafe that has a very, very good niche in catering, in takeaway, and really hasn't felt too many bumps when it comes to COVID. Sure, turnover's down, but we can get around that. So it's spread itself across the board, as opposed to a cafe that was probably going broke before COVID even came along. That's probably going to be a risky concern. Do you have forward contracts with suppliers, or is everything just open to a new client every time they deal with you? So all of these factors affect risk. Profitability, what can be done with profitability? There's a whole range of stuff we can do through improvement. Improving your profit margins, looking at your cost structure, looking at driving sales and increasing the sales volume that you're doing, and looking at your pricing structure. So there's a whole heap of things that can be done on the profitability side, not just the risk. So we do a business valuation discovery to help you understand what your business is worth, and then we go about improving that to fit in with your wealth strategy. The third thing there on the screen is hidden profits. So one of the things we do when we first start working with a business owner is look for some easy wins, some of the hidden profits. And we have a calculator which works on 1%ers. And what I mean by 1%ers is what would happen if we could increase the number of customers you had by 1%. Now, it doesn't just have to be 1%, but I like to show people the effect that 1% can have. What would happen if the amount of times that they bought off you increased by 1%? What would happen if the amount that you sold to them increased by 1%? Not only through pricing, but also by strategies around on-sells and add-ons to your product, additional services that you could provide that you're currently not. So looking at all of these things within a hidden profits analysis can spit out some really easy wins that we can do, because 1% is not a lot. If we're dealing with 100,000, we're talking about a $1,000 increase. If we're talking about 500,000, it's a $5,000 increase. Now, depending on your average sale, if your average sale is $100, then that's 50 extra sales. Could you get one extra sale a week and drive an extra $5,000 into your pocket? Would that not make it worth just working on the hidden profits analysis alone? So think about your business in a broader perspective. There's so much noise out there now with Google and YouTube videos on this, and somebody else has got another video. I've got a ton of videos. But you really need the impact of somebody understanding your business intimately, not just a video from somebody who knows nothing about your business and you take on their ideas and apply them blindly without any interpretation or context. That's the world that we live in. So as we move beyond awareness, I wanted to share a little bit of a case study. So John and Georgie owned a retail safety business, and husband and wife had a couple of employees, and despite us urging over many years as to how to go about things, husband, John, he measured the business in his trusty little notebook, and Georgie, the wife, weaved her way around all of the complex supplier arrangements, the order processes, materials needed, etc. Now, this business worked, but it worked for the owners. They knew how it ran. They understood all the little intricacies of things. But when it came time to sell, the problem was it was really evident that it needed to work for others. So we had buyers looking at this thing in the first attempt to sale where they just got cold feet. They looked at it for about 6 months, and then when it got to contract stage, they just couldn't see themselves running this business. They couldn't see they could get past the complexity of the day-to-day. So what we did was we did a process of some constant improvement over about 18 months to 2 years. The owners were able to look at things like systems and procedures, stock levels, ordering processes, the pricing of their products and the profitability. And this ensured that when the next buyer came along, they could actually see themselves running the business. It was sale ready and it was valued appropriately. It was actually valued more than what it was previously because all of these things had de-risked the business somewhat and made it a more attractive proposition for the new owner to buy. John and Georgie, they're enjoying the retired life now. They've moved on. They've been the time to go-getters and they've secured the successful sale. New owners still running quite a profitable business as far as I'm aware, which is good to see because it's always good to see a person pass the baton on and the next person add their energies to it to take it further. So as we move forward, what we then need to look at after we've got some awareness is we need to look at the numbers. Now this is where most people work with an accountant. This is where it's important for us as accountants to understand that this is just a subset of what we do with our business clients. Now if you just want to work on the numbers, that's fine. If you come across us and you already have a great accountant, and it's kind of funny because some people they work with an accountant and it's because they're a family friend or they're cheap or they do a good job and get me a big refund. If I come across people like that and they really need the business coaching elements and they don't want to change from their current accountant, that's fine. We just omit the numbers part of things and we make sure that we work collaboratively with that accountant to give us the information that we need when we start monitoring the numbers in our accountability sessions. So really important that you have those numbers to hand. Now, I'll put one caveat over that. If we discover that your accountant is not doing you justice and you deserve better, then we'll let you know. Because if there's one thing that grinds my gears more, it's clients just through blind loyalty getting really bad service from their accountant. I'm not here to bag other accountants. I love accountants, I am one. But the fact of the matter is that there's a lot of people don't know how much they're missing out on. And we'll let them know. If we see that there's shortfalls, we'll let them know. Particularly dodgy things within their tax. Sometimes people think that everything's fine and then, oh, wow, we didn't know that. So we make sure that all of that's right and all of that's working well. But we work quite collaboratively with a number of accountants with clients and it works well. So the first thing you need to do is you need to have good tax and financial numbers. If you haven't got that, your accountant needs to step up to the plate. If they can't do it, then we're happy to step in. Now, if I'm talking to those of you in the room who are looking for a new accountant, then tax and financials is the core of what we do. But it isn't all that we do. So it's very important that you understand your tax and structure. It's very important that you have tax planning throughout the year. It's very important that you're on top of all of your compliance dates and all of your obligations. It's very important that you understand the numbers, so you're not just preparing your numbers historically for tax, but you've actually got up-to-date information at your fingertips on a monthly basis that you can rely on, that you can use to make decisions. Is that the type of thing that you're receiving? If not, you need to work on those numbers more. We also work through what we call your money map. Now, your money map is simply a budget. So profit budget, cash flow budget. You really need to get a handle on what's coming down the pipe, what you need to be generating to actually make this whole thing work. I'm amazed at the amount of businesses who either don't believe in budgets or they don't have one. How the hell can you get somewhere when you have no map? And that's what your money map is all about. We design it and we stick you to it through your accountability sessions so we know exactly where you're heading, and if we see a gap, we do something about it. If we see you fall behind, we pick up the pace. You cannot run a business blindly in this day and age. It's impossible. You'll get swamped and you'll end up in financial ruin. So really important that you work on the numbers within your business and get that moving. When we're talking about your money map, I spend a bit of time talking about cash flow cycles. So I wanted to explain cash flow cycle for you because this is some value that you can take from today's session. As you work through your money map, your budgets, your financials in your business, you'll start to get an understanding of how your cash flow cycle works. So what's the cash flow cycle? Let's say you are running a business and you sign up a client for a job. When you sign up the client for the job, you have a couple of things need to happen. You need to order materials, you need to engage your team, so that's labour. So all of these things that incur money, and you're paying for all of those up until a point in time where you can claim money from your customer. And when you claim that money from your customer, the time between when you claim it and get paid is another gap. So you have these gaps along the timeline. Think of a retail business, so that example is kind of like a builder. Think of a retail business where you buy the stock, you put it on the shelves. Your supplier expects you to pay for that, probably before you sell it. Sits on your shelves, you ultimately sell it, or hopefully sell it. And then once you sell it, you then are either paid directly by your customer at the point of sale, or God forbid, you're in a business whereby you sell that and then you get paid sometime after. Quite often this hits people with manufacturing, so they buy the materials, they make the goods, they then sell the goods at a retail space, and then they're still waiting to get paid maybe 30 days after, rather than having a point of sale, like say a dress shop or a cafe or something like that. So the longer each of these steps takes between when you actually have to pay for your inputs and you receive money for your outputs, the bigger your cash flow gap is. Now, if your business is only small, then your cash flow gap will be what it is. But the more you sell and the bigger you get, the bigger your cash flow circle becomes. The more money is needed to fill that gap, because that gap is getting bigger. The amount you spend up front is bigger. Sure, the amount you receive is now bigger, but as your business gets bigger, the cash flow circles get harder to manage. And this is what's meant by growing yourself out of business. You might have heard that term. So this case study talks about Simon running a building company, grown very quickly. Management of cash flow was his big issue. Bigger he grew, the bigger the overdraft he needed. Just grew and grew, bigger overdraft. I get more money from the bank. Okay, the bank will back me because I'm making plenty of money. We worked with Simon to address some really key areas on his cash flow cycle. First of all, getting him to understand it, and then second of all, understanding the gaps that needed to be covered. This allowed him to focus on the levers that he needed to pull. So getting his pricing right, getting his workload right, getting the timing of his progress claims and payments from his clients right. It was really important that he got the pricing right in that exercise, because we didn't want him just cycling through jobs, robbing Peter to pay Paul, and really not getting a lot at the end of the day. And that happens a lot within the trades industries. What are your cash flow circles like? Are they small? Are they growing? Have you got big gaps in your cash flow cycle? Do you not know what your cash flow cycle is? These are all things that you need to get on top of when you're working through your numbers. The third month when you're working through this structured approach, whether you're applying this yourself or whether you're having us apply it for you and with you, is planning. Failing to have a plan is like hopping in the car and not knowing where you're going. It's a really simple analogy, but it's a true one. Sure, you'll be getting somewhere, but where you're going, you might arrive somewhere really good, you might arrive somewhere really shit. If you don't know where you're going, you just wander around and you'll probably waste a few hours, and then you'll come back and you really haven't achieved a lot. It's like a weekend drive. Sure, you might have a good time while you're doing it, but you really don't get anywhere. So a plan is essential, and I don't believe in these big, thick academic plans, which are a whole heap of waffle. Waffle with headings, I call it. If you've got one of those business plans sitting in the bottom drawer, you need to change it. You need to get what we call an action plan in place. Now, an action plan takes you through your objectives. So what is it that you're trying to achieve? Being really specific and targeted about your objectives. Then from your objectives, you know what you're trying to achieve specifically. How are you going to do that? What are the strategies that you're going to put in place? So that's the broad, this is what we're going to do. And then your actual actions come underneath that and then get assigned to people within your team, including yourself, to start ticking those off and getting them done. They have somebody responsible, they have a date to be done. That's how you make progress in business with a plan. Now, a lot of people say, oh, there's no point in having a plan, it's going to change. Well, welcome to life. We live in an era where change can happen in a heartbeat. Continual lockdowns of local government areas happen in a heartbeat. You find out that there's a positive COVID case, and 2 days later, that region is locked down for 7 days. Now, does that mean that the business plan that you did for the 12 months is now useless? No. Hopefully you had some contingencies in your plan for this year as to what you would do if you were locked down. So what I'm saying is that you've got to have these action plans in place, and sure, things will duck, things will weave, which is why you don't just print it out on a sheet of paper, put it in the bottom drawer and forget all about it. You've got to have something that's living, breathing, changing all the time. If you're not getting something done, then that action's got to be pushed back. That strategy might need to be changed because you tried it and it didn't work, so you've got to try something else. It needs to be an action plan, not waffle with headings. Once you've got your plan in place, or even before you do your plan, you need to have your team involved. So if you're one of these people that wants to control the planning process, great. But to get your team on board with the plan, you've got to involve them at some step. I'd actually suggest getting your team involved from the start. If you don't want to reveal numbers and figures to your team, don't. But what you can do in terms of those broader objectives, strategies, actions, they're the guys that are at the coalface. They're the people that you really need to be asking this stuff of, because if you're running your business right, you're 3 parts removed. You think you know what needs to be done. You want to control it because you've got control freak tendencies. But the fact of the matter is that your team are the ones that know what's going on. And once you get to the end of all of this planning, you need to look at how you're going to protect what you've built. So that's where we work on things like asset protection, as well as understanding your structure of your business, insurances, having things like partnership agreements, cross insurances, a whole range of things to protect what you've built. Protecting your IP in your business is another big one. Here's an example I was just talking about with the team. This was Keith. He ran an independent grocery store in northern New South Wales. We ran a strategic planning day with Keith and his wife. We went through a growth plan for them for the next 1 to 3 years to help their business, to take them to a time to go get a stage. Now, we ran that on Friday for a full day, and on the Saturday we planned a team session. Oh, I thought this was going to go pear-shaped. North Coast town, the team consisted of half a dozen 16 to 18-year-olds. Saturday morning, the last place they looked like they wanted to be was in a planning session. They walked in, bleary-eyed, disinterested, and I thought, oh, this is going to be tough. Couldn't have been further from the truth. These guys came out with pure gold that morning. They had better ideas, and we achieved more in one morning than we did in a whole day with Keith and his wife. Because these guys were at the coalface, they came up with strategies from dealing with waste, the shop fit out, rostering, etc. Your team will know things that you won't. They'll have the answers that you don't. So use them. They're an asset to you. Use your team. They've got really good ideas to input into your strategic process. The next discipline or pillar is improvement. Now, when I work with a business in terms of improvement, I'm working with them to basically look at some really key areas. Now, improvement is all about looking at their systems and procedures. That's the big one, because most businesses are quite poor at that. They might have some systems and procedures, but they really don't have them documented. They have a way of doing things, but it's all up here in their head. They might have a way of doing things, but it's so convoluted that it adds to that complexity and risk that we talked about earlier. The other factor of improvement is managing change. Now, you will find people are really resistant to changing what they've done for a long time. It's habitual. So we use some tools which come from the world of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. They're just things we've got in our tool belt. If we find somebody's really, really hard to change, there's typically a reason behind it. I've seen consultants come in and do time and motion studies and sit there and observe people and how they do their job. How confronting is that? That's got nothing to do with systems and procedures and managing change. Systems and procedures is all about asking, okay, how's something done? Tell me about it. Talk to me about it. Not I'm going to sit here and spy on you. I actually worked in a business once where that was done. And the consultant actually sat in the hallway and observed us walk backwards and forwards and do things all day. What a load of codswallop. Systems and procedures, understanding what you do, why you do it, how you do it, and how can it be improved and documented. Managing change, if you don't want to change, what's the issue and how do we get to the root of that, rather than just saying, here's a system, follow it, because you won't do it. Improvement's all about what works, what doesn't, and adjusting it. So when you get into the swing of the Vector Business Platform, what you're doing, if you're working with me as a client, is we work once a month on your improvement. We meet for an hour, we talk about what's currently working, what's not working, and what we need to adjust. If things are working, do more of those. If they aren't, how do we make them work? Or do we give that idea up and try something else? So it's a constant cycle of improvement and managing the change, not only within your team, but within yourself as a business owner, because quite often you're the one that's in the way. Simple as that. I mentioned we work once a month on improvement. The other thing that we do once a month is accountability. So we were working on improvement and accountability with Cheryl. And Cheryl lacked confidence, she's a bit old-fashioned, and we were talking about conversion rate from her quotes. It suddenly dropped off a cliff. And I could have easily given her a script to follow and get on the phone, Cheryl, and ring these people. Problem is that all of those unfollowed up quotes that were in the filing cabinet could have been a fire-breathing dragon for all we know. And Cheryl was just frozen because she feared rejection. Now, we had to look at what was causing that. So we went deeper and we did some things like some timeline work and a whole heap of things that we pulled out of our toolkit to be able to help Cheryl understand it, because it turned out that she lived her whole life under this shadow of criticism, rejection. She'd been abandoned as a child. Her husband was always telling her she was constantly wrong. There was a whole range of things. And we were able to get her to the stage where she was able to pick up that phone and speak with the clients, and we made her understand that the clients would be more upset if she didn't call than if she did. And make her understand that that rejection really didn't exist. It was a tough process for a while to get her to that point of realisation, but we were able to use those skills that we have as coaches to get her to the next stage. A lot of that was found through accountability, and I spoke before about working on a monthly basis with improvement. We also do a monthly meeting on accountability. So we typically do improvement one fortnight, accountability the next fortnight. Accountability, we look at numbers in the business and monitor the numbers. We understand what to measure and when, so not over measuring things. And we look at getting you unstuck, a bit like Cheryl, moving you from a place where you're just not achieving stuff to a place where you can. And in doing that, we use either a carrot or a stick approach. Some people need the carrot. They need to be shown, the soft way. They need to be shown the way to move towards the light. Others need a stick. It's a bit like a thoroughbred racehorse. You've got 350 kilos with a 50 kilo jockey on top, going at about 60, 70 k's an hour. If it needs to move, you can't just rub it on the neck and say, come on horsey, move. You've got to give it a bit of a crack and move it. Not only to save you, but save those around you. So sometimes you can use the carrot approach, sometimes you can use the stick, and it's all in the understanding of what you need at any point in time. Sometimes you need both. Can really be mixed up. You've just got to understand the human reaction and understand what drives people, and that's what we're experts at. The stick approach is a bit like Gordon Ramsay. I'm not going to go through this, but it's like, what's been done? Oh, I don't know. Where are you at? Oh, I don't know. And then it's just like, come on, get this done. Sometimes you need to do that. I've done this with clients before, and they always say that the conversation was really, really intense, but the problem is typically with that person, and they just need that bit of a shake, and they need the stick. So I want to check in with you. How many of those things that we've spoken about can you relate to? Can you relate to the issues in and around business valuation and understanding that you need to build now to get to the time to go? Can you understand and relate to the 3 different types of business, the go-getters, the grow-getters, and the time-to-go-getters? Is your business one that doesn't really understand the numbers, or maybe needs to get more juice out of the numbers that are being produced? Do you need a money map? Is your business one that believes that you don't need a plan and you keep it all in your head, so you get distracted because an idea comes in here one day, goes around there, replaced by another idea, and then you end up with so many things spinning around that you just don't know where you are? Does your business need to work on its improvement and its accountability, understanding what's working, what's not, and what to do about it, and checking in on a regular basis on not only the numbers, but also on you in terms of where you're at and whether you're driving the business forward or whether you're just getting in your own way? So understanding all of these things is part of the process. So you work through this process, the first 3 months of the awareness and the numbers and the planning, and then cycle through improvement and accountability for the remaining 9 months. Now, I have people say, well, okay, what if we're not ready for the numbers part? What if our tax? Well, we just move it. Same as I said, if somebody just wants tax and financials from an accountant, then I'm happy to just be their accountant. But I can tell you now that it's a much better client-accountant relationship if we're working on all of these other things at the same time. You'll end up with a much better business, and we'll have a lot better of a fit between us as we work together. Likewise, we can work with your accountant, and we'll work collaboratively, and hopefully for you, they're doing what you need as an accountant. If not, we'll let you know, and you can make the decisions from there. So hopefully that brings it all together. I just wanted to mention a few things to finish off with. Today wasn't about selling you anything. It was really just about letting you know about the disciplines that you need in a good structure for your business development. Hopefully some of those things resonate and I've been able to give you some initial ideas to start moving, but you will go at greater speed and with greater impact when you work with a good coach and a good accountant. And that's what we offer through the Vector Business platform, is that structure. As I said, not here to sell anything, just to make you aware of a few things that we are doing. This is a mock-up of the cover. This is my graphic design skills, absolutely hopeless. This isn't a cover that's going to run with the book. I had somebody recently say to me, is that the cover? No, it's not. But this is the book that's coming. Awesome Business, Awesome Life. An ambitious business owner's guide to control consistent and rapid growth. Now, the book is this on steroids, explaining this over around about 180 pages and really getting in depth in what you need to know. So I'm due for release around about February, March next year with the publishers now. Pre-orders will be available from December. Took me about 104 days to write this thing, 163 hours, and it's got 20 years of my know-how in it. It really is my business brain imprint. So that's something quite exciting for us and something that I'd love you guys to grab a copy of when it does come along. Next thing I just wanted to make you aware of was the podcast. If you haven't listened or tuned into the podcast already, please do so. Every business needs a hero. We try to have a hot topic on a particular subject and then have a hero story of a business owner, because we say every business needs a hero and every hero has a story. The guy down the bottom there is Carl Schwantes. He was on one of our early episodes, and Carl's got some great concepts in and around cash flow. He's runs a boutique diamond jeweler store in Brisbane. This is the Vector Business Scorecard that I was talking about early on. I'd really encourage you to jump on and take a look at this scorecard. It's free. We'll send out a link to those of you who are on the webinar today. Jump on, have a look. It takes you under 5 minutes to complete it, and you get, this is chopped and changed, but you basically get this information. You get where you're sitting, what your score is on each of those different pillars. The awareness, the numbers, the planning, improvement, accountability, and overall score. And then that overall score will rank you as to whether you're stalled, in motion, in flight, at altitude, and give you some tips on the areas that you fell down on. Now, after you complete your Vector Business Score, we actually offer a free, what we call clarity call, to take you through your results and discuss in a bit more detail the things that you maybe need to look at. Again, that clarity call is free. So all up, you're getting a diagnosis plus an appointment with the consultant to help you out for free, in addition to today's session. So really something that I would encourage you to take up. All of those things are going to give you those ideas you need to take forward. Now, if from there you want to work together, well, we can. But it's all geared at getting some knowledge out there, because what we're all about is education of small business. If we can educate enough small business owners, then the rest will look after itself for us. It's a byproduct. Balanced Business Program. Look, our October intake is sold out for this. Our next intake will be happening just prior to Christmas for a January start. It's a 2-month group online program, weekly live sessions and self-paced video content, really amping up what we've done today, but giving you more grunt on all of those areas plus some. Normally 3,500, but if you express some interest today to me just by return email, say, David, I want to get on board this when it's released prior to Christmas. Please keep me a space. then I'll do that for $2,700 or 3 monthly instalments of $1,000. So knowing that cash flow can sometimes be tight, that can help out. So this is for those businesses who really don't want to go the whole hog of the Vector Business platform. This gets you the essence for a ridiculously cheap price when it comes to business coaching. So for us to work together, this is a really good first step for you to take. So I'd like to thank you for your time today, for hanging around for an extra couple of minutes. But that's it in a nutshell. Becoming a Vector Business is all about giving yourself the structure to be able to achieve those things that you originally set out to do when you went into business. Otherwise, you're just going to get on the wheel and you'll wake up in 10 years' time and you'll go, what just happened? We've had fun running our business, but what have we really got to show for it? Or do we have to start this process again now? Always better to start earlier rather than later. So thanks for your time. I look forward to chatting with you, hopefully on a clarity call, and we'll shoot through some links to the Vector Business Scorecard and a couple of other resources for you to have a look at. Thanks for your time.